up, Buckers? First of all, I just want to say that I'm a huge Silent Hill fan. Not just of the games, but like the lifestyle. I dream of Silent Hill. I eat the food from Silent Hill. I'm silent in general, like I don't talk. For those who are unaware, Silent Hill is a beloved horror game series that only had like 4 good games that came out like 20 years ago, but they were really good. And then after a bunch of shitty games and a big hiatus, it finally came back with a critically acclaimed PT demo that was spooky as fuck. And so yeah, then that got canned, and the creator of PT went on to go make a game about babies and black ooze, and then Konami, the publishers, went on to do absolutely fucking nothing. Like, they didn't do anything. And then a ray of hope just creamed from the sky like a year ago. Silent Hill 2 Remaster, new game, new movie, more game, gamer. Silent Hill 3 is actually one of my favorite videojuegos of all time. And Silent Hill 4 was actually the second horror game I ever played. So yeah, the series is something I care about. And so yeah, let's talk about the Silent Hill 2 trailer and the new game. So firstly, the Silent Hill 2 Remake trailer. Honestly, it's not as bad, but fuck you, Bloober Team, for no release date again. Like, why even show another trailer? That's honestly what pissed me off the most. But other than that, the trailer is getting a ton of hate, and I don't know if it really deserves a lot of it. Tons of people are criticizing the fact that the trailer is combat focused. What actually matters more about the combat is the balancing itself. The thing that worked about the old combat was that it was clunky, and so it was actually hard to kill the enemies. So if you make the combat more intuitive, it can actually work, but that's only as long as they make it extremely difficult to actually kill the enemies. You shouldn't be able to pop a couple caps into a nurse's head and then have it dead. It should be a genuine difficult task to overcome or take out any enemy in the game. Combat should be more of a defensive option rather than an offensive one. It should be you walk into a room and then something's coming at you, you're like, oh fuck, and then you start whacking around, rather than something like, oh look at these fuckers, let me at them. Then it just turns into Resident Evil. In Resident Evil, you start with nothing, you're scared and you want to shit yourself, and then you build up your arsenal and you blow ass everywhere. Silent Hill starts you out with nothing, and no matter how much shit you get, you never truly feel safe, as anything could be around the next corner, and yeah, it's usually better to just run or hide than kill it in the first place. Silent Hill keeps the eeriness of the start of a Resident Evil game throughout its entirety. You feel lost, you feel hopeless, and everything around you feels gross. And it just gets worse and worse and worse. Both games start at the same point, but evolve in the opposite directions. But yeah, I do agree that animations are a bit whack. James should just feel like an ordinary guy who has no combat experience, but he's just kind of too stiffened, like he kind of knows what he's doing. And the monsters should move in unrealistic ways. Like, they aren't just humans. They're even kind of fucked up, perhaps. So yeah, make them move in unrealistic ways. I saw someone point out the vault animation, and yeah, it's funny. It really should be more of just a messy stumble animation rather than just the default COD Soldier vault animation. There is still hope though for this, because Konami posted a clip on Twitter, and it actually has the unrealistic flair that's kind of missing from the trailer. So yeah, hopefully in the actual game there's a lot less of this and a lot more of this. And people are saying the graphics are bad, but I honestly don't give a fuck about the graphics. What's more important is the stylization. The original game made you feel gross. Everything was covered in goo, rust, or pee, but segments of the trailer are just a bit too clean. I assume a lot of this is because we're kind of seeing more normal segments from the game rather than the Otherworld segments, which have more of that ooey gooey goodness. But honestly, I think with a bit more time in the oven, just a bit of texture work and some filters could give that game that scratchy look it's kind of missing. I understand people's worries with Bloober Team, the ones who are actually making the game, being the ones that made the funny baby running into the wall game, but like, I never loved the original Silent Hill for the graphics or combat. It was the feelings that made me feel. Both the pants-pissingly great horror and the intriguing story, and we just can't know how the remake accomplishes that until getting it for ourselves and having our hands on it. The biggest problem is the idea of a combat trailer in the first place. Like, just why? I get that it's a big change from the original, but it's not Resident Evil. People aren't playing it for the shooty kill shoot gameplay. I think this is honestly just a mismanaging on the part of Konami. Bloober Team is probably just hard at work making the game, and Konami's marketing team is just like, they're just COD-pilled, and they think that the only way to get people excited is to have just shooting and action. And to be honest, I think just having a free playable demo would do wonders for this game, as people could really get their hands on it and see for themselves. Alright, enough hopium. Let's talk about that new free-to-play Silent Hill game. Our first taste of the Silent Hill revival. And I feel like I need to wash that taste out of my mouth because it tasted like ass. It's a free-to-play 2-hour experience, which on paper you can't really complain about. Well, the problem is that it's setting the precedent for what to expect from the series. And the last free-to-play Silent Hill game experience was PT, a critically acclaimed thing. And that got people excited for what was to come. And this was a buggy snooze fest with an uninspired story, bare bones gameplay, and was more sitting and watching than actually playing. I did really like the environmental design and music though, those were both dope. Where PT was a must play, this is a must skip. You are not missing out on anything. This is not the right direction for Silent Hill. The animations are just amateur with constant stopping of the player, interrupting gameplay with text on the screen and just dialogue, just extend runtime, and cutscenes after cutscenes, and there's just like 4 chases and 1 puzzle, and that's about it. The worst part though is that the story is taking precedent over the actual game itself. There was very little to even do or look for, and what's worse is that during that time my immersion was constantly being broken by people talking in my ear or having to stare at a wall for like 30 seconds while somebody talks, or just have a random cutscene play out of nowhere for the 15th time for like 2 minutes, when all I really wanted to do was just explore the environment and absorb the atmosphere. The story was also just personally, it felt like the goal wasn't to have an interesting game, but to be a message. Silent Hill does have a history of dealing with mental health and all that jazz, but it was never in your face. It was show, don't tell. It's one of people's biggest problems with the Silent Hill 2 remake right now, is that it's too upfront with its themes and leaving no subtlety or room for interpretation, and this is just even worse. Hell, other games have done the same message, but actually good. But you know what? They're not horror games. The worst offender of this is when you're walking through the game in a hallway and there's just like insults all over the screen. This just isn't a horror game, let alone Silent Hill. The Silent Hill series has some of the scariest games I've ever played in my life. This is Silent Hill. Now look at this.
Dumb.
I mean, at least the new remake is trying. The focus of Silent Hill should not be the message. It should be the game. When the game is ass, people aren't even gonna care about your story or what you're trying to say, even if it's important or just otherwise compelling. If this was not Silent Hill, I'd be like, oh damn, pretty good for a free indie horror game. Needs some work, but I can definitely see the potential and I'd love to see what comes next. But this instead shows a clear lack of understanding of what Silent Hill is and what the game should be. This could have been an online series and it probably would have accomplished the same thing. And it honestly would have been far less disappointing. There's no point to this being a Silent Hill game. It gains nothing from it and does nothing with it. Instead of being an interesting free-to-play horror game, it's a Silent Hill game that actually diminishes my faith in the series, and it was something I actually regretted buying even though it was free. Well, that's about it for me. Do you agree with what I said? And is there something I missed? Let me know down in the comments. And hey, if you want to see more vids like this, check out the channel or the subscribe button, notifications on, ding. Am I right, guys? Ding, am I right, guys? And yeah, that's about it. See ya.